Hi, we are team number 7 and we are going to talk about strategies-based instruction. Did you ever see one of those enticing websites advertising a quick and easy foreign language course? The advertising might have made additional guarantees and promises. We have known from our own experiences in learning and/or teaching a foreign language that there's no magic formula for successful foreign language learning. Well, those set of audio CDs or a software package may be a good start or a great refresher. But what is required for such success is the persistent use of a whole battery of strategies for language learning. Strategic investment. The learning of any skills involves a certain degree of investment of one's time and effort. Every complex set of skills is acquired through a combination of observing, focusing, practicing, monitoring, correcting, and redirecting. And so one develops strategies for perceiving others and for singling out relevant elements of language and all the other necessary behaviors essential for mastering those skills. The application of the principle of strategic investment in classrooms showed that language classroom techniques can encourage, build, and sustain effective language learning strategies in our students. This facet of language teaching has come to be known as strategies-based instruction, or SBI. In an era of communicative, interactive, learner-centered teaching, SBI simply cannot be overlooked. All too often, teachers are so consumed with the delivery of the language to the students, and they neglect to spend some effort preparing learners to receive the language. And students mostly are unaware of the tricks of successful language. What commonly happens is that they simply do whatever the teacher tells, or in an effort to fill class hours with fascinating material, teachers overlook their mission of enabling students to eventually become independent of classrooms, that is, to become autonomous learners. When students are taught how to look at themselves and how to capitalize on their talents and experiences, they learn lessons that carry them well beyond any language classroom. That's what SBI is about. Good language learners. Research about good language learners led to identify relevant factors that contribute to those learners' success through tests of psycholinguistic factors, interviews, and data analysis. Some generalizations were drawn by Joan Rubin and Irene Thompson, such as good language learners are creative, they use the language inside and outside the classroom, make errors work for them and not against them, among others. You can have a look at this list for a more detailed taxonomy. Styles of successful language learning. One step in understanding SBI is to make a distinction between styles and strategies. Styles, according to Kinsella, are an individual's natural habitual and preferred ways of absorbing, processing, and retaining new information and skills. Strategies, on the other hand, are specific methods of approaching a problem or task, modes of operation for achieving a particular end, or planned designs for controlling and manipulating certain information. Strategies vary widely within an individual, while styles are more constant and predictable. You may almost simultaneously utilize a dozen strategies for figuring out and solve a specific problem. Successful second language learners are usually people who know how to manipulate style as well as strategy, levels in their day-to-day encounters with the language. This means that they are first aware of general personality and cognitive characteristics or tendencies that usually lead to successful acquisition and strive to develop those characteristics. Learners can, through a program of self-awareness, understand who they are and take steps to change what may be inhibiting traits within their general style. Awareness and action. Implied in the foregoing discussion is the all-important principle of autonomy. In order for learners to become self-driven, independent learners beyond the classroom, they must be fully aware of their own strengths, weaknesses, preferences, and styles, and be able to capitalize on that metacognition through the use of appropriate action in the form of strategic options. The awareness-action relationship is fundamental to all human learning, and especially to acquiring complex skills like foreign languages. When learners are aware of their own capacities and limitations, they can efficiently adopt pathways to success that capitalize on strengths and compensates for weaknesses. Successful language learners typically develop this self-awareness either subconsciously through experience and/or natural ability, or through conscious processes that may be stimulated by a teacher, a textbook, a guide to language learning, tips, and hints from others. The following diagram offers a visual picture of the awareness-action connection.
Developing student self-awareness of style. The question is, how do you help learners to develop the self-awareness necessary to work toward successful language learning strategies? As a teacher, you can do several things. Let's talk about some of them. Number 1. Informal self-checklist. This is one effective way to instill student awareness of successful styles in which students can just fill out and then discuss. Checklists are usually not formally scored or tailed. They just serve as focal points for discussion and enlightenment. What we have to bear in mind is the level of our students. If they have a lower proficiency level, we can simplify the vocabulary in order to avoid problems while answering the checklist. Here we have an example of an informal self-checklist that has been used with ESL students. Number 2. Formal personality and cognitive style tests. If this kind of tests are available to you, you might try using them in your class, but with caution. Most of the time, these tests are culturally biased, have difficult language, and need to be interpreted. For example, many tests designed for North American English speakers are loaded with cultural references, and learners from other countries can misinterpret. If the language is too difficult and you try to paraphrase, Be careful, because you can destroy the test's validity. Certain versions of the Myers-Briggs type inventory have been attempted with learners, especially the Keirsey temperament sorter, in order to give a measure of personality indices. Nowadays, there is enough research to indicate that personality styles as measured by the MBTI correspond to language learning styles, and that learners can benefit from knowing both the assets and liabilities of each style. For example, an extroverted style is beneficial for face-to-face conversation, but it can also entail dependency on outside stimulation and work against self-sufficiency. Guys, if you try to remember, at the beginning of the degree, we took these kind of tests about personality, learning styles, and cognitive styles. Number 3. Readings, lectures, and discussions. Another way of encouraging self-awareness of styles in your classroom is for you to assign occasional readings or give mini lectures or presentations followed by discussions about successful learning styles. Number 4. Encouraging good language learner behavior. Another way of instilling self-awareness in students is through frequent impromptu reminders of rules for good language learning and encouragement of discussion or clarification. Sometimes the little comments you make here and there have the effect of softly urging students to take charge of their own destiny by understanding their own styles of learning and capitalizing on their abilities. A set of successful styles for language learning might be appropriately capsulized in the form of 10 rules or commandments. As we can see in this table, there is a teacher's version and a learner's version. Teacher's version. Number 1. Lower inhibitions. Number 2. Encourage risk-taking. Number 3. Build self-confidence. Number 4. Develop intrinsic motivation. Number 5. Engage in cooperative learning. Number 6. Use right brain processes. Number 7. Promote ambiguity tolerance. Number 8. Practice intuition. Number 9. Process error feedback. Number 10. Set personal goals. Learner's version. Fear not. Dive in. Believe in yourself. Seize the day. Love thy neighbor. Get the big picture. Cope with the chaos. Go with your hunches. Make mistakes work for you. Set your own goals. It is extremely important to remember that these style continua do not always fit all learners. These rules encompass what most learners need to point to most of the time in most language learning contexts. That is, most learners come to a language class with too many inhibitions, not enough willingness to take risks, relatively low self-confidence in their ability to learn a language, etc. Your mission is to pull your students away from this potentially interfering side of the continuum and to get them to grapple with these problems and overcome them.
How to teach strategies in the classroom. Now, learning strategies can be taught just like learning styles. This is possible because they are even more specific than styles. There are at least 4 different approaches that you can take to teach strategies in the language classroom, which will be discussed now. Teach strategies through interactive techniques. When using these ones, it can be noticed that there is an actual effort to produce the outward manifestation of styles. One technique to make the students familiar with the large amount of strategies is through the use of the 10 commandments that my partner talked about. There, we can find some useful techniques that they can use or that we can make them use. Another strategy can be carried out by using the exercises suggested by Rebecca Oxford, in which she suggests several techniques and the learning strategies that the students can get from them. For example, from an information gap listening activity, students can practice guessing, note-taking, focusing attention, and cooperating with co-learners. By the time you put them in practice, it is important to have the appropriate atmosphere in the classroom. For this, in the table you are seeing now, there are some suggestions to create this environment in the classroom in which students feel comfortable and are encouraged to develop their own strategies. As you can see, they are to lower inhibitions, to encourage risk-taking, to build learners' self-confidence, to help them to develop intrinsic motivation, to promote cooperative learning, to encourage them to use right brain processing, to promote ambiguity, tolerance, to help them use their intuition, to get the students to make their own mistakes work for them, and to get the students to set their own goals. The second approach is use compensatory techniques. An important issue in SBI is the identification of the techniques that aim to compensate for certain style weaknesses. A good way to face this is through one classification made by Alice Omejo, where she listed 55 different techniques according to numerous cognitive style problems that might be preventing students from reaching their highest potential. Have a look at this table. In here, we can see 5 of the several items on Omejo's lists. Each item is a problem that might apply to certain students in your class. Right after the problem, we can see a set of techniques that you can prescribe to help to overcome that problem. For example, in excessive reflectiveness/caution, which is when students are unwilling to take risks, the suggested techniques are small group techniques, role-playing, brainstorming, and fluency techniques. Number 3. Administer a strategy inventory. Self-assessment, as we have seen before with the checklist format, is very encouraged to be used as a learning technique. Well, having the same attitude, we can introduce a strategy inventory. They are a set of statements about learning English, and they are thought out to assess individual learning. The document that you are seeing now is the best and most comprehensive of such instruments. It was made by Rebecca Oxford, and it's called a Strategy Inventory for Language Learning. The seal can be used in class for developing awareness of strategies in the same way suggested earlier for the self-checklist. Its scoring and interpretation can be tricky, which is why you should be very careful if you're planning to use it. Additionally, the seal can have double duty as an instrument that enlightens you about 50 different ways that your learners could become a little more successful in their language learning path. As you can see, It is divided in 5 parts: A, B, C, D, E, and each one of these contains a certain amount of statements. Then, the person answering it is expected to write in a separate piece of paper a number from 1 to 5, which describes the best how true the statement is. Number 4. Make use of impromptu, teacher-initiated advice. Learners can benefit greatly from your daily attention and the little tricks that you can pass to them. You, as the teacher, think back to your own language learning experiences and note what it was that you now attribute your success or failure to. When the appropriate moment occurs in your class, use that opportunity to teach how to learn. By doing this, you will improve their opportunities for strategic investment in their learning process.
Package models for strategy-based instruction. Many of your opportunities for strategy training in the classroom will be methodological. That is, you will opt for one of the 4 possible means previously mentioned. There remain 3 more formalized models of incorporating strategy awareness and practice in language classrooms. Textbook embedded instruction. An increasing number of ESL textbooks are offering guidelines and exercises for strategy awareness and practice within the stream of a chapter. Brown's New Vista series of ESL learners offers examples of embedding strategy work within the exercises of a textbook. Students are encouraged to continue their learning outside the classroom, sometimes individually, sometimes with a partner. The Teacher's Resource Manual for this book gives detailed directions to teachers on how to facilitate these extra-class learning experiences. Another series of ESL textbooks, Lecture Ready, designed to teach academic listening, note-taking, and discussion, also includes strategic suggestions for effectively comprehending academic lectures. Students' attention is explicitly drawn to cues for listening accurately to a lecture, for example, by attending to language that signals sequences of points and signals for a new idea or topic. Adjunct self-help guides. A second pre-packaged way of enlightening students about the strategies is through the assignment or recommendation of a self-help study guide. Such how-to guides tend to have short, easy-to-understand chapters with information, anecdotes, tips, and exercises that will help learners to use strategies successfully. In Brown's Strategies for Success, students are systematically led through awareness plus action sequences for 12 different topics, 1 topic for each chapter. Topics include self-confidence, anxiety, motivation, left and right brain processing, and risk-taking, to name some. Each chapter opens with a self-check inventory in which students can raise awareness of their strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. This is followed by a brief discussion of the chapter's theme, including a list of suggested strategies, and each brief chapter concludes with 4 sets of exercises, each representing one of the 4 skills. By using such a book, students gain a heightened awareness of themselves, a battery of appropriate strategies they can use, and the opportunity to actually put the chapter's strategies into practice during class. Another type of book is a hybrid between textbook embedded SBI and the adjunct guides. Content-centered ESL textbook in which the content itself is the study and utilization of learning strategies. For example, Gail Ellis and Barbara Sinclair get intermediate EFL learners to look systematically at successful learning strategies through readings, checklists, and various techniques in all 4 skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Learning centers. A considerable number of learning centers around the world have a ESL-related component. Such centers typically make available to learners a number of possible types of extra-class assistance in writing, reading, academic study skills, pronunciation, and other oral production. Assistance can include diagnostic testing and interpretation, one-on-one tutorials, small group tutorials, audio and video teaching programs, and computer programs ranging from grammatical brush-up to writing self-help.